The 2023 NFL Draft is just around the corner, and I want to play Matchmaker. A lot of my friends say, JT, you're always good at pairing up people and making couples. You're always good at playing the whole Matchmaker game. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play Matchmaker with the top 5 quarterbacks in the upcoming draft, and I'm going to pair them up with teams that I think they are good fits with. Let's start off with the Houston Texans. Bryce Young. Yeah, you may have concerns about Bryce Young's size and his durability and whatnot, but Bryce Young, outside of that, this is probably the best quarterback prospect that we've seen in the last decade. This dude has high football IQ. He is very accurate. He makes smart decisions with the football, and plus, this guy is clutch. He's poised. He never gets rattled. He's cool, calm, collected. This is what the Houston Texans need at quarterback. They need somebody who can be calm. They need somebody who's going to be able to show up in big moments late in games and be able to outduel Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville. Bryce Young, I think, will be a fantastic fit with the Miko Ryans and the Houston Texans. The Indianapolis Colts, with Anthony Richardson, I think can be really interesting. They hired Shane Steichen, former OC of the Philadelphia Eagles. He did a very good job when it came to the development of Jalen Hurts. You remember what Jalen Hurts was when he was coming out of Oklahoma? A lot of people questioned just how effective would he be as a passer at the NFL level. Well, Shane Steichen, he designs a really good offense around Jalen Hurts' mobility and his athleticism. And then Jalen Hurts, this past season, ends up elevating to an MVP level and also improves as a passer. So earlier, when Jalen Hurts first got drafted into Philadelphia, he was more of a quarterback who was better as an athlete than he was as a true quarterback. But Shane Steichen was able to put him in a system that was able to not only utilize his athleticism, but also help him develop as a passer. Jalen Hurts this past season probably was the best, most accurate quarterback in the league when it came to throwing outside the numbers. And some of you guys may disagree with that, but the stats kind of show that Jalen Hurts was the most accurate quarterback when it came to hitting receivers outside of the numbers. You saw the touchdown that he threw to Anthony Brown in the Super Bowl against Kansas City. Now you look at Indianapolis with Shane Steichen there as their head coach. You have a guy like Anthony Richardson who kind of has similar concerns to what Jalen Hurts did when he was coming out of college. The thing with Jalen Hurts was we questioned just how good was he going to be when it came to throwing the football in the NFL. Same concerns with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, he needs a lot of work when it comes to his footwork, his mechanics, his accuracy, but this dude is an incredible athlete. And remember, when Philadelphia went to the playoffs and they got pasted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that season they had one of the NFL's best rushing attacks. And Jalen Hurts was a big reason for that. And we've seen plenty of times when you've had an athletic quarterback who may not be the most polished thrower, but he's a really good athlete. He's really good running the football. You can design an offense around his athleticism. And you can find ways to win games with that. And when you look at Anthony Richardson with the Indianapolis Colts and the fact that they have Shane Steichen as their head coach, I think that Shane Steichen can put Anthony Richardson in a similar situation that he did with Jalen Hurts and help develop Anthony Richardson. And Anthony Richardson, out of all of the quarterbacks coming into this year's draft, he has the highest upside and the highest floor out of all of them. The dude can throw the football damn near the whole entire field. The dude is an incredible athlete. He can make you miss, but he also can run through you. So for Anthony Richardson, he goes to the Indianapolis Colts. A lot of Colts fans may be really skeptical about it, but when it comes to determining how successful a quarterback is at the NFL level, you got to look at their head coach. And I think the fact that you have a head coach who has experience in working with quarterbacks who have similar skill sets and abilities with Anthony Richardson, he's going to be able to get the most out of AR-15. You saw what he did with Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. This was somebody that many people questioned his accuracy, his ability to read defenses. You saw what he did with Shane Steichen as the OC in Philadelphia. And look what potentially Shane Steichen can do with Anthony Richardson. I don't think that Anthony Richardson going to the Indianapolis Colts is a bad fit. I think it would be a fantastic pairing, him with Shane Steichen. Will Levis to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I know Raiders fans probably going to hate this one because many people in NFL media, many NFL fans, they don't like Will Levis. They think that Will Levis is going to be a bona fide bust. But a lot of scouts, a lot of GMs and executives, they feel differently. They feel like Will Levis is going to end up being a phenomenal quarterback in the NFL. But I think for Josh McDaniels, at this point, it doesn't look like you're going to be able to get a vet if Aaron Rodgers decides to return to Green Bay. But even if Aaron Rodgers gets traded to the Las Vegas Raiders, how many years does Aaron Rodgers have left in the tank? I don't think you're going to get 3 years of high quality football out of Aaron Rodgers. I think at most you get 2 more years out of Aaron Rodgers. So when you have Aaron Rodgers, or if you get a veteran quarterback in free agency, like a Jimmy Garoppolo, then you should draft Will Levis. Will Levis is someone who has a lot of upside. He may not be day one starting material at the moment, but you can let him sit behind a vet, let him learn, develop him in the background, and then when he's ready to take over, you end up increasing his opportunity or his chance for success. And even if you do draft Will Levis and you have to throw him into the fire right away, it's not like the Raiders are a completely terrible situation that he'll be walking into. You got Devontae Adams, you got Thurman Renfro, Darren Waller. We don't know what's going to happen with Josh Jacobs, but you are going to have a really good rushing attack. The offensive line needs to improve, and you need to get a defense. But when you look at the personnel that the Raiders have from a talent standpoint, I think that for Will Levis, this is a really good fit. The talent's there. You're going to have Devontae Adams, so it's not like you're going to be throwing to nobodies. It's not like you're going to be working with nothing at receiver. Heck, you're going to have a way better receiving core in the NFL than what you did your final season in Kentucky. And then you got to remember that Will Levis is a really good athlete. And I think for Josh McDaniels, he's looking for that potentially in his next quarterback. If the Raiders have to find their next QB via the draft, they're looking for a guy who's going to be able to do it all. I don't think they're going to look for a guy who just has a limited ceiling with limited upside. I think if the Raiders draft a QB, they're swinging for the fences. They're going to go big or go home. And for Josh McDaniels, he can kind of sense that his job security is a little bit in question. And if you get a young quarterback, that may be able to buy you a little bit of time, at least an extra year. So I think that Will Levis will be a really good fit with the Las Vegas Raiders. The Carolina Panthers getting C.J. Stroud, I really want this to happen. I really want Bryce Young to go to Carolina, but I think C.J. Stroud will be probably a better fit for Frank Reich. Frank Reich is really good with quarterbacks. His final year, when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, he helped lead them to a Super Bowl. Not to mention, Frank Reich has done a pretty good job with every quarterback he has had when he has been a head coach. During his time as the head coach for the Indianapolis Colts, you had Andrew Luck. He was really good. Then when he retired, Jacoby Brissett had to start for a season, which he wasn't bad. Jacoby Brissett had his best season as a NFL starter under Frank Reich. Then you have Phillip Rivers, who played his last season for Indianapolis. He was pretty good under Frank Reich. And then after that, things kind of went downhill from there. You were kind of playing musical chairs at the quarterback position. You had Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, although he was the reason why you pretty much didn't make it to the postseason, he still had one of his most efficient seasons of his whole entire NFL career. And then look what happened to Carson Wentz when he got traded for Indianapolis. He fell apart. Frank Reich is really good with quarterbacks, and you give him a C.J. Stroud probably the second most pro-ready quarterback in this draft class with Bryce Young. I think that in Carolina, with Stroud at the helm, this team could be a dark horse Super Bowl contender. Their offensive line is pretty solid. You got a really good group of receivers with DJ Moore, Terrence Marshall. You got Chuba Hubbard in the backfield. You bring in a couple of marquee free agents and have a pretty solid draft class. I think Carolina could surprise a lot of people. And this division is not that tough. New Orleans, they have a lot of talent, but they don't really have a proven starter at quarterback right now. Shoot, they're not even going to be able to get their hands on a top 15 pick without having to trade up the fan. So for New Orleans, they're kind of a little bit in desperation mode. They're banking on trying to get their hands on the Derek Carr or Jimmy G in free agency. If they can't get one of those guys, they're kind of screwed. The Atlanta Falcons, they have a lot of holes right now. We don't even know if Desmond Ridder is the guy. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they got a lot of issues when it comes to how they're going to manage the salary cap, what's going on with their coaching staff. I'm not really the biggest fans of some of their new staff hires on the offensive staff. It doesn't look like they're headed in the right direction. Plus, they might have to trade one of their top two receivers in Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. So for the Carolina Panthers, you get CJ Stroud. I immediately think they become the favorite to win the NFC South. CJ Stroud is a really accurate passer. He has good ball placement. This dude is really poised. I think that he is really good when it comes to reading defenses. He makes really good decisions with the football. And plus, the dude actually has showed us that he is more than willing to run the football via the last game we saw in his Ohio State career against the Georgia Bulldogs. CJ Stroud with the Carolina Panthers, I think they automatically become the best team in the NFC South with CJ Stroud. Then the last pairing that I have is the Minnesota Vikings getting my boy Hendon Money Hooker. Now, you guys already know how I feel about my boy Hendon Hooker. I love me some Hendon Hooker. And for the Minnesota Vikings, Kirk Cousins, his contract is soon to expire. After next season, he becomes a free agent. And let's face it, most people are ready to move on from Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins isn't a bad quarterback. He's just not good enough to get you over the hump. Hendon Hooker, he's coming off an ACL injury. He isn't probably going to be ready to throw until somewhat through training camp. But if you draft him, if you're Minnesota, you don't have to rush him into anything. You give him a year to learn, adjust to the NFL game, learn the NFL offense, because that's a big concern that everybody has about Hendon Hooker, going from that Tennessee offense to learning an NFL offense. But I think if you give him a year to sit back, learn, and develop, eventually when Kirk Cousins' contract ends up expiring, you can end up inserting Hendon Hooker into the mix. And then I think Hendon Hooker could prove to be a significant upgrade from Kirk Cousins. He has a strong arm. He's really accurate. And the short intermediate passing game, his deep ball accuracy is a little inconsistent. Plus the fact that he's coming from that gimmicky offense or that air raid offense in Tennessee that doesn't really have a lot of unique routes. So you have concerns there. But outside of that, man, I mean, the arm strength, he has mobility, he's accurate, short, intermediate. I think he's a pretty good fit with Minnesota. Kirk Cousins isn't that great of an athlete. Hendon Hooker, he can give you a different element to your offense that you haven't had when you have started Kirk Cousins. And Hendon Hooker, he's a fantastic leader. This dude is a high character guy that you want in your locker room. Even though he's going to be up there in age, you don't really want to start somebody at his age and say he's your franchise QB. But I mean, age is nothing but a number to me. Honestly, it's like, just because Hendon Hooker can potentially be the starter of the Minnesota Vikings in his mid-20s doesn't mean that he still can have a 10 to 15 year career in the NFL. I think that a lot of people are just overblowing the age thing. It's not like the dude is going to be a first round pick anymore due to his injury. So if you're Minnesota, maybe you can steal him in the later rounds. Maybe he falls to you at 3. Maybe you can trade up in the second round for Hendon Hooker. But for Minnesota, I think that is really important that they go ahead and they get their potential franchise QB with the opportunity that they're going to have coming up this season. You already have a pretty solid team. So you get Hendon Hooker in there. You give him a year to learn, a year to develop. Then you let Kirk Cousins walk in free agency, and then you just slide on up Hendon Hooker and let him become your starter. Kevin O'Connell looks to be a really bright offensive-minded coach. So I think that he should be able to make things work with Hendon Hooker.